Episode 2. Daniel thought the hardest part of his life had been surviving. He was wrong. The hardest part was learning how to be seen. Overnight, he became the $5 guy. His inbox flooded with messages from across the country: single mothers in Texas, veterans in Ohio, college students in California. Some called him an inspiration. Some called him a hero. Daniel didn't feel like either. He still remembered what it felt like to choose between food and rent. Now he was standing beside Thomas at press conferences, shaking hands with city officials, speaking about kindness on morning shows. But one message changed everything. It came from a 12-year-old girl in Detroit. "I used my lunch money to buy socks for a homeless man today because of you." Daniel stared at the message for a long time. This wasn't about him anymore. This was spreading. The $5 movement began trending nationwide. People posted videos of small acts of sacrifice, not excess, not leftovers, but meaningful giving. Thomas watched Daniel closely during those weeks. "You're uncomfortable with praise," Thomas observed one afternoon. Daniel nodded. "I know what it's like to struggle. I don't want people thinking I'm better than anyone." Thomas smiled. "That's exactly why you were the right person." Daniel didn't fully understand what Thomas meant. Not until 3 weeks later, when Thomas made another announcement. The ballroom was packed. Business leaders, non-profit directors, reporters. Thomas stood at the podium while Daniel sat beside him, unaware of what was coming. 3 weeks ago, Thomas began. A young man reminded us that generosity isn't measured by wealth. It's measured by heart. He gestured toward Daniel. The $5 movement has raised $3.2 million. The crowd gasped. Daniel's eyes widened. Thomas continued. "And today, we are taking it further." A large screen behind them lit up with architectural renderings. A community center, a food pantry, a job training facility, all under one name: the Carter Community Center. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. Thomas looked at him. "You once told me you just didn't want me to be hungry." Thomas said softly into the microphone, "Now thousands won't be." Daniel stood slowly, overwhelmed. "I don't deserve this," he said quietly. Thomas shook his head. "You didn't give because you deserve something. You gave because someone needed something." The crowd rose to its feet. But the most powerful moment wasn't the applause. It was what happened after. An elderly janitor who worked at the hotel approached Daniel quietly. "I don't have $5, the man said, "but I can volunteer on weekends." Daniel smiled through tears. "That's worth more." And in that moment, Daniel finally understood. Kindness multiplies. 1 year later, Daniel stood outside the completed Carter Community Center. Children ran across the courtyard. Veterans attended resume workshops. Families lined up for fresh groceries. And above the entrance, engraved in stone, were simple words: "It's just $5." Daniel laughed softly at that. He remembered the cold night, the hunger, the doubt. If he had walked past Thomas, none of this would exist. Thomas joined him outside. "You changed more than you know," Thomas said. Daniel shook his head. "No, we did." Thomas smiled knowingly. "You see it now, don't you?" Daniel nodded. Kindness isn't about having enough. It's about believing someone else matters. A reporter approached one final time. "Daniel, if you could say one thing to America right now, what would it be?" Daniel looked around at the building, at the people, at the life that had grown from one small decision. He took a breath. Don't wait until you're rich to be generous. Give when it's hard. That's when it matters most. The camera lights flickered off. The crowd slowly dispersed. But the movement didn't. Across the country, $5 at a time, people were choosing each other. And somewhere in Chicago, on a freezing sidewalk that no longer felt so cold, a single act of sacrifice had turned into hope. All because one man decided to give his last $5.